Minamana, so. Mindanao, 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 Sahara, Mindanao.
In every election, behind every candidate and campaign are the voters, the ones who hold the real power, especially at JRMCU Shokan campus. In the College of Teacher Education, teacher educators are preparing to make their voices heard in the 2025 mayoral election.
The most recent election in Shokan was held on May 9, 2022 during the Philippine general elections. Voters elected local officials including the mayor. Now, a new decision awaits on May 12, 2025. 3 candidates are running for mayor. We have first Joshua Baroro for PDP Laban, second Teng Pawaki for Lakas, and the last one is Cesar Soriano for Partido Federal ng Pilipinas.
As students and future educators, we don't just care about promises, we care about action. We look for leaders who prioritize education, youth empowerment, and community development. This election is our chance to choose someone who reflects the values we want to pass on the next generation.
In this documentary, we focused on the voices of young voters at JRMSU Shokan campus. What issues matter to them? How do they make their choices? And what does this election mean for their future and the town they call home? This is their story. Young, informed, and ready to vote.
So we're here to discuss about the most significant events in any democratic society. Elections. Elections are not only about choosing leaders, but also about shaping the futures of our communities, our countries, and our values. Today, we'll be diving into the recent mayoral race in Shokan, Zamboanga del Norte to explore its impact, the voter experience, and what it tells us about public sentiment and civic engagement.
In the 2022 local elections, Mr. Cesar Soriano of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas was elected as the mayor of Shokan, Zamboanga del Norte. As we approach the 2025 elections, understanding the dynamics of voter preferences and the factors that influencing their decisions becomes crucial.
So, before we start our interview session, I want you first to introduce yourself to our viewers.
So, hello and good day to everyone. So, I am Alshidar C. Ati and I am a BSN Maths 2 student.
Okay, thank you. My first question for you is, what type of candidate do you feel best represent the interests of the student population in Shokan?
So, the
Best represent interests of the student population in Shokan.
the best interest represent to me is the leadership and the experience.
Okay, for our second question, how important is it for a candidate to have a background in education or social work to gain your support?
So, it is important for a candidate to have a educational background and a social work background because it is the one of the important factors that the people have interest to the candidate.
Okay, our next question is, what is the most important factor that influences your decision when choosing a candidate to vote for the 2025 local elections?
So, the number one is the educational background, then the number two is leadership, and lastly, the experience.
So for our second to the last question, how can you describe your voting habits in previous local election, if any?
So, since it is my first time, so I don't have any voting habits.
So our last question is, how often do you engage in discussions about politics or elections with your peers or professor?
So, honestly, I don't never or want to discuss about politics or elections.
Good morning, Ms. Annie. Before we formally start our interview session, please introduce yourselves to our viewers and your program.
So I'm Jane Hamid from DSS Mathematics, second year.
Our first question is, what types of candidates do you feel best represents the interests of the students' population in Siargao?
So as a student, my viewpoint about the best candidate that I should wanted to have is the one who can promote, improve for the betterment and the welfare of the student and also to the community.
So what is the most important factor that influences your decision when choosing a candidate to vote for in the 2025 local elections?
So one major factor that can influence my opinion is that their platforms for the goodness of the community and the people.
So, how important it is for a candidate to have a background in education or social work to gain your support?
So it is important for a candidate to have a background in a good background, especially when he or she is going to be a leader in a community. So you need to look for the background of them for you to know if they can handle their responsibilities.
Can you describe your voting habits in previous local elections, if any?
I do prioritize others than myself.
Our last question is, how often do you engage in discussions about politics or elections with your peers or professors? Sometimes.
So now we have here another person to be interviewed for this interview session. So before I'm going to ask you, or we're going to start our interview session, can you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Okay, so hi, good day. My name is Janica Joy Soto. I English major from second year.
Okay, thank you. So my first question for you is, what type of candidates do you feel best represents the interest of the students' population in Siargao?
Okay, so I think this question is very relevant, right? Especially since the politics has recently concluded. So the type of candidate that I would like, especially for the interest of the student in this university or in Siargao?
In Siargao.
In Siargao is the type of candidates who values the welfare of its citizens.
For our next question is, how important is it for a candidate to have a background in education or social work to gain your support?
So it is very important, especially for a candidate who have background and their credentials. Because when choosing a candidate, it's one of my main standards in choosing them because I check their track records, their credentials, what have they done, their backgrounds, their experiences, and I think that matters the most, especially when they have gained experiences, because it really reflects their values as a person and as a future politician.
So our third question is, what is the most important factor that influences your decision when choosing a candidate to vote for in the 2025 local election?
So aside from their credentials and their track records, the most important factor that I consider is the fact that they are always there in times of distress and calamities. Those are the people that you can ask help whenever you needed them. So it matters really. even when the position is like barangay tanod or barangay captain, as long as they are there. So that is one of my basis.
So we are here for our second to the last question. My question is, can you describe your voting habits in previous local elections, if any?
Okay, so I'm gonna say it first. There is no perfect politician, right? So all of them have their own shortcomings. But if I were to choose between those who is evil and those who is lesser evil, I'd opt for the lesser evil, even if I don't have a choice, because that is what matters. And also one of my basis in choosing it is that I ask my parents or my colleagues what do they think about that person, especially if I don't personally know the candidate. So their opinions about that person matters to me also. And when I already know their opinions about that person, I can evaluate them, the politicians myself, and then make my decision also if I will vote them or not.
For our next question, we have how often do you engage in discussions about politics or elections with your peers or professors?
Very often. We just talked about it a while ago with my classmates, and our experiences are as first-time voters, and we were quite disappointed, happy, satisfied, and then disappointed again because not everything that we wanted will happen. So it's kind of mixed feelings, but I am quite satisfied also because I was able to participate in my civic duties as a Filipino citizen, to give my vote. So that is very important also. So, and I hope in the next election I will be able to participate more in these elections and then to provide my perspectives regarding this politics. So.
Okay, before I start asking you some questions, can you please introduce yourself first to our viewers?
I am Aina Majales. I am 20 years old and I am from the College of Teacher Education, Bachelor of Physical Education.
Okay, thank you. So my first question for you is, how can you describe your voting habits in previous local elections, if any?
One of my voting habits during the election is that kanang magdala bitaw og pagkaon, especially water, di ba? Then para bitaw nila ako maggawas-gawas if ever kanang time na sa pagboto, kanang na nakay food, na nakay water, wala na bitaw kay kuan sa gawas, nakay
Our second question is, how often do you engage in discussions about politics or elections with your peer or professors?
Well, I am into engaging sa discussions sa politicians and elections because para bitaw ma-aware ko kung unsa ang dapat o dili dapat imon o kinsa kanang dapat botohan o ang kinsa di dapat boto.
So our third question is, what is the most important factor that influences your decision when choosing a candidate to vote for in the 2025 local elections?
So, I'd rather vote the politician kanang nabitay kuan a good educational background and naanay past experiences as a politician.
So our second to the last question is, what type of candidate do you feel represent the interest of the student population in Siargao?
So, the type of candidate that I'd like to vote is that kanang active and dali duodon para bitaw confident enough and comfortable enough ang mga tao para manihanglan or magpatabang sa katong kandidato nga nila.
For our last question, how important is it for a candidate to have a background in education or social work to gain your support?
So, the education and the social work will be your foundation as a politician for you to be elected sa imong position.
Everyone, my name is Queen Rose Lapsika from the Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Filipino.
My first question is, what type of candidates do you feel best represents the interests of the student population in Siargao?
So, syempre, as a your Miss University, syempre, I strongly adhere within the essence of BH, our head, heart, and hand. So, the primary essence of choosing our candidate for this certain election is to appraise the essence of leadership, particularly among the youth. Syempre, in the present time, we still believe that kabataan is still the pag-asa ng bayan, and we need someone who can hone this and lead this certain way towards progress. And I believe that this certain someone must possess the essence of having the strong background, particularly his educational status, and then moving on to his heart, the essence of having the humane society and our hand. So, syempre, as a leader, one must know how to serve his people.
Second question, how important is it for a candidate to have a background in education or social work to gain your support?
So, it is important for a certain candidate to have this certain background of information to have my support, because this will serve as our basis whether or not we will vote him or not, and whether or not he deserves this certain position.
For our third question, what is the most important factor that influences your decision when choosing a candidate to vote for in the 2025 local election?
So, the most important factor for me is his background within the leadership. Siyempre, we must choose someone who has the service and the humanity for his people, because if we will vote for someone who doesn't have this certain background towards this certain position he was running for, then why choose him?
For our last question, how often do you engage in discussions about candidates and elections with your peers or professors?
So, I would say that not oftentimes, because most of my peers or most of my friends are not into politics. However, I strongly exercise my freedom of speech in social media, because most of the time, I found these certain individuals or the netizens in social media who often share their own perspective towards politics that open oppressed minds or open contrasting minds.
In the 2025 local election, Mr. Cesar C. Soriano of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas was re-elected as Mayor of Siocon, securing a total of 13,044 votes. He was followed by Mr. Pawaki and Mr. Baroro. A key factor in Soriano's victory was the strong support he received from the youth, who play a significant role in shaping the election's outcome. This demonstrates the growing political awareness and involvement of younger voters in local governance. As we reflect on this electoral outcome, we'll delve into the factors that influence voter preferences, especially among the youth, and what this means for the future direction of Siocon.
At Jeremy Shoshokon campus, leadership is shaped by the voices of its students. In a recent survey of 25 respondents, their opinions painted a clear picture of who they believe should lead. Cesar C. Soriano received 11 votes, making him the top choice, a reflection of trust and vision. Victor Teng Pawaki followed closely with 9 votes, showing strong support and passion from his peers. Joshua Jojo Bararo earned 4 votes, and 2 students remain undecided, still reflecting on what leadership means to them. Visuals of students interacting, candidates showing camaraderie. More than a tally, this was a moment of student voice, unity, and shared hope. As Cesar C. Soriano takes the lead, may his steps reflect the values of every student at Jeremy Shoshokon campus.